Hi, welcome to Challenge JP. My name is Jacek, and today I'm going to show you how to create a financial planning and analysis dashboard in Microsoft Power BI.
Before we dive into all the steps that we need to make in order to create the Power BI dashboard, let me show you a very quick overview of what we're trying to get. The first page, actuals, those are simply accounting numbers presented into three different statements, so profit and loss, cash flow, and balance sheet. They all are presented on a monthly basis, and they reflect the data that I'll be using for our analysis and planning here. Then the second page, analysis, is where I'm going to dive into those numbers a little bit. So I'm going to restate my monthly profit and loss. But then, for example, here with that graph, I want to analyze my OPEX. So I want to see actually all the subcategories, all the elements of the OPEX that contribute to my overall operating expenses. To the right, you'll see I have a graph with my monthly headcount graph. And then finally, you can actually combine the data from the P&L, so payroll data, payroll cost, revenues with those headcount numbers. Then moving on, this is where I'm going to deal with the planning and forecasting part of the dashboard. So as you can see here, I have now data, aggregated data below here for 2006 and 2026 until 2030 in a form of graph and also a table. So what this dashboard assumes is that I'm using 2025 numbers as my actuals, which will become the basis for my forecast, and I'm going to create a 5-year forecast. You see here I have a monthly breakdown for those future years. So for example, here for the year 2026, I can select a different year to show the monthly detail behind the forecast. And in order to make that forecast work and actually make it interesting and meaningful, I will introduce Power BI parameters, which you can see here on those slicers. So that's where I can set the assumptions around the revenue or cost growth, headcount, tax depreciation, for example. And then here I'm dealing specifically with cash flow and balance sheet presentation. So while the page before was showing the P&L forecast or a plan for my P&L, this page here completes the picture. And this is where we're going to deal with cash flow analysis. So we want to see actually how much cash we're going to have over those 5 years. So simple things like cash flow forecasting, looking at the operating cash flow, investing, financing, the balance sheet. But also what I'll do here is that I will introduce ability to add debt, add some financing. We will see that we will need some financing, otherwise the cash will go below zero. And with that debt, I will spend a bit of a time to explain all the measures that are behind this debt. But basically, we want to make sure that as we're introducing the debt, we can also calculate the repayment schedule, so payments over time, and also interest, and so on and so forth. Now, the way I will work is that I will be introducing DAX measures, as I mentioned before. There's quite a few of them. You can see I have this whole measures table here, which is also divided with the subfolders. But I won't be going into every single DAX measures. Instead, I will be referring to my web tutorial, which I wrote and posted on my website. You can just follow that web tutorial to understand all the steps that we're making. Now, if I scroll down in here, you'll see that I have my table of contents here that reflects the structure of this web tutorial, but also of this video tutorial right now. And most importantly, you can find a link to this tutorial, to this web tutorial in the description of this video. We'll start from loading the data. We'll create some custom DAX dimensions or tables. We'll connect all those tables together through our data model. Then we'll start introducing some basic DAX measures to be able to aggregate our actuals, and then also conduct some analysis. So this will be related to that first and second page that we look at. Then after we've done with those visuals, then I will introduce another set of DAX measures dealing with forecasting, planning, and then later also with that debt and a bit of a working capital movement. And then also we'll those measures will allow us to create those visuals for our planning section or for forecasting. And then finally, we'll be able to preview that dashboard to play with some of the assumptions, to do some what-if analysis on your own. And you'll see that also on the website itself, you will have an ability to download that Power BI package, so the Power BI file and also the data sources, and a separate file, a text file with those DAX measures. Let's start with our step one, which is simply loading the data. So in order to do it, I'm going to go back to my Power BI dashboard, and I'm going to use now a blank report to take a detailed overview of how we're going to load this data, and then how we're going to connect those tables together to create a data model, because that's going to be the core for all the for everything else we'll be doing from there. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to go to my file here, and then I want to click on the blank report. Once I click on the blank report, this will take me to the page that looks like that. I've already saved that as a file as an FP&A practice. So again, this is something that will there'll be sort of switching back and forth between that completed file and the this file. So to load our first data set, we'll stay on my home tab here, and I'll click on Get Data icon, and then select the CSV. So I'll be using here the CSV files as my data. This will take me to my main folder, my file folder here. Okay, I want to go to the data folder, and then I have four files, and I'm going to start from cash flow monthly. I will skip balance sheet for now because there's just one transformation that we have to do there, so we'll leave it to the end. So I'm selecting that file here, and I click Open. Okay, and now I have that window here. I can load it directly, but let's click on the transform data first. And once I click on the transform data, you'll see that you will see a Power Query Editor showing up. So we just want to make sure that we quickly inspect the data and ensure that all this data look fine. As I see that month is in a date format, a category and line item is text, and then the amount is in a numerical format. I could change the amount here to currencies, but I'm going to do that actually later on when I'm using my DAX measures. So I'm going to simply click on Close and Apply, and then wait, apply changes, and then wait for the data to load. Okay, so if I go to my data tab here, I can see that my first data source loaded, my cash flow. So let's do exactly the same thing. Let's repeat the same step for my other data. So payroll, roster, again, open, transform, and then we'll quickly inspect. We'll see that, okay, employee ID is the numerical data. Then we have our other positions. So name, departments, and position as a text, and then hire date is a date. Again, numerical data for salaries. We'll have some decimals for pensions, employee tax, and other contributions, also a bonus, and then the termination date. Let's go back to home, close and apply. And then we'll see that, okay, the data is loaded here again. Again, we'll repeat this step for another set of data, P&L daily, open, transform data, which opens the Power Query Editor as previously, and then you see the date is in the date format, account subcategory in the text format. Then we have some numerical data, decimals here, and then just the decimals for the amount, and then the whole number for the account code. Let's close and apply the data. Okay, we see that we have now our 3 data sets. We'll want to load the balance sheet, and this is the one that I mentioned. We need to do a bit of a transformation here. So let's go to our text, CSV, balance sheet, and then open it up. Okay, and then what you can see here is that the format of the table itself is in that white format. So we actually have just one, we have a column with month, but then for each month, you see there is a column with cash, accounts receivable, net assets, payable, debt, and so on and so forth. We want to make sure that this table actually matches the format of the previous tables, and sort of. So what we want to do, we want to turn it into this long format with basically just 2 columns that will show me the date, my month, then then this category, and then the amount. So what I have to do for that, I have to select my month column. Then I want to go to a transform tab, and then I want to click here on that arrow and pivot table and pivot columns. And then I want to select that unpivot other columns. Okay, so this will transform this data into my long format here. So I have still my first, so I'm preserving my first column month because I said unpivot other columns. And then I have 2 additional columns here, no more, which is the attribute and then value. So I'm actually going to change this attribute name to category. Okay, and then value will be my amount. Okay, so just so it's clear, and then I can see that category is text format and the amount is my numericals with decimals. So now with that transformed table, I can go back to my home tab and then select close and apply. Okay, and then you see that if I click now on my balance sheet monthly table, and I go to my table view here, I see that that follows that transform format. So it takes the original file and then it changes that to that long format, which is consistent with my other tables. Okay, so now with the data loaded, what we want to do, we want to start connecting those tables together. So in order to do it, let's go to the model view here to the left, and then you can see again those tables. I want to create here a calendar table. Now I'm going to use a DAX table, so this is going to be our first DAX table. Okay, so we're going to click on the new table. Okay, and you see that here in this bar, first of all, you see there's new table called table at the moment. And then in this bar, formula bar, I have a table equal function. Okay, so nothing's happening at the moment. That's something that you will see later on again when we're creating more DAX measures. But for now, just as I mentioned before, I won't be typing in all the DAX measures here manually, but I can go back to my web tutorial. You see that we've covered that transformation here, and I can simply take the DAX measures from my tutorial here. Okay, so you see that first DAX measure, DAX table is my calendar table, and then very briefly, what we're trying to do here is basically try to find the minimum and maximum date from my P&L. So that's going to create the range of dates that cover this actual range. We will want to add some columns here, like year, month number, quarter, and so on and so forth. And then also I want to add some flags that that I can then use for my filters. One flag is actual, then the other one is forecast, which basically indicates whether the a given date falls within the actual range or forecast. Going back to the forecast again here, you see that there was a formula here that creates a calendar with the minimum date and the maximum actual date based on my P&L here. But then there was this +5, and that +5 indicates that I also want to add those 5 years and allow for forecast, which I will create in my later steps. And that 1231 is basically just ensures that all those ranges go until the end of the year, so 31st of December. Okay, so if I copy that DAX and then go back to my Power BI, go back to my formula here and paste it, and then click OK here or commit. I should now see that I have a table. My table change into calendar. I can see that it has the fields or columns that I wanted. Start with date. Okay, I can go to my table view here. Again, select this calendar. You see that all those dates are here. My month start, my month end, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then the last thing, which is very important, and you could actually do it straight away. If you go to the table tools here, make sure that you mark this table as date table. So just switch it on and then select date as our date column. Okay, so let's click on save. Okay, so now actually if we go back to our model view, I can start creating my first data model. I will be adding some more dimensions here, but we do have a base set up with that calendar table. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag those drag my tables with data. So my fact tables. What I want to do, I'm literally going to drag this date into cash flow month field. So that's my corresponding field, and I want to select the date connecting with the month, one-to-many cardinality, single cross filter direction, and then active relationship. Okay, so that's the setup I'm going to use for my tables here. Again, I'm going to repeat the same for my P&L. So I'm going to drag my date and connect it with date. Again, I'm going to establish a one-to-many single active relation between those tables. So you see, as I'm doing that, I'm adding those new connections. Okay, and then with the balance sheet, we want to connect date to a month. Okay, again, one-to-many, single, and active. Okay, now with the payroll roster, there's a reason why I left it to the end. We actually have two dates in here, and one is a hire date, one is a termination date. I'm going to connect my date field to the hire date. Okay, so that gives us our basic data model, and with this model, we could already start creating that first visual. Before we move on, we still want to add a few more DAX dimensions to our model. So if we go back to my tutorial here, we'll see that we start with that calendar table. And then we have our relationships between calendar and our tables. But now we want to add some additional dimensions for balance sheet, for profit and loss, for cash flow. Okay, that's something that is also important because we will be using those for our analysis. So for example, for the balance sheet, we want to create the balance sheet category dimension. So let's do that. I'm going to again copy my DAX here, go back to my Power BI dashboard, my practice dashboard, and then I'm going to insert a new table. Okay, and we can just do it here. And then I'm going to paste my my DAX measure, and then basically what this does is just creates the list that we can use as filters or as slicers later on. Let's first create those dimensions, and then we'll link them into our tables. So go back to my web tutorial here. Again, you can find the link to this tutorial in the description of this video. And then we want to create the P&L subcategory table. So again, I'm going to just copy that DAX code, go back to my practice sheet over here, and then I'm going to click on new table, and then I'm going to paste the my code, and then you see that what this code will do, it will take the data from my P&L daily, and then specifically it will look into subcategory account and account columns, and it will create a distinct combination of distinct values with those three columns. So we'll see exactly what that means in practice. If I click OK, I'll commit here. See that I have my P&L subcategory dimension table. If I click on that table, let's go to a table view, and you see that, okay, now I have my subcategory account and account code. Okay, so now I want to actually create a higher level. I have my subcategories and accounts here. I now want to create the dimensions just for the accounts itself. Copy this table, click new table, paste the data, paste the code, click OK, and then you see that I have my P&L account dimension. Let's go back to our tutorial here, and now we want to create a cash flow dimension. Copy the code, paste code in, say OK. And finally, we can create the department dimension. So what we want to do, we want to create a table with distinct department names. So again, I'm going to copy this table, select my Power BI practice sheet, and then again, click on that new table. Let me just bring it over here. We'll clean it up a little bit in a few moments. Okay, I'm going to paste the code, commit it. So click on that tick. Okay, and then if I go to my table view and have a look at the department, you see that what the code did basically just selected the department column from my payroll roster data that we loaded a few moments ago, and then it's just displays unique values from this department column. Effectively, it creates the table with unique names for each department. Okay, and that basically finishes the part where we need to create the DAX dimensions or DAX tables. Now, the last step is to integrate them into our existing data model. at the moment, you see that right now they just sort of blocks here. They're not having any real connection. So let's start maybe from department. So from the last table we created, so this department table will only have a link with our payroll roster. So I'm just going to click and drag that department from my dim department. I want to make sure that, again, the my cardinality is one-to-many, single direction, and then the relationship is active. So that's going to add another line to my diagram. Now let's say we take the balance sheet category table. I can connect the category field to corresponding category field in the balance sheet data table. Okay. Again, I want to make sure that we keep that as a one-to-many relationship, single and active. Let's look at the cash flow category. So maybe I can move this table a little bit over here and then put my cash flow table in here. Again, I have my category column, which I want to connect with the category field in my cash flow monthly table, single direction, one-to-many, active. Okay. And then finally here I have my P&L. And then what I'm going to do with the P&L is the following, because as you recall, we actually are having two P&L related tables. So we have an account, then we have the subcategory dimensions, and then we have our P&L. So what I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to use this table as my so this is my highest level table for the account. So I'm going to connect the account field or column with the account in my subcategory. So also one-to-many, also active, also single direction. And then I'm going to connect the subcategory from my subcategory table to a subcategory in my P&L data table here. Okay, also one-to-many, single and active. Okay, with our data model completed, we can now move on to another step, which will involve developing DAX to calculate our financial measures. So let me first go to our practice sheet. And I just want to show you, before we create any measures, it's always a good idea to first create a separate table that will hold all the DAX measures in it. Okay. So if we go back to our file here, and if we click on, let's say on the report view, and then Home tab, and then click on Enter Data, you will see that we can create a new table from here. Okay, and all we have to do in here is give it a name. So I'm going to call it Measures Table. Click Load, and then on your right side, you should see a measures table appearing. There you go. In after you click on that load button. So that's the place where we're going to hold our measures. And in order for us to create the first measure, we just have to click right click on the measures on that measures table, and then click new measure here. Okay. And once you do that, you should see a formula bar here. Again, it was the same case as with a DAX table. It's with the name of the measures and then the formula that we want to use. Okay, so my first measure that I will create will be called PL amount, and then following with an equal sign. And then let's say what I want to do, I simply want to start it with a sum function. So it's very similar to what you would see, for example, in Excel. Open bracket. Okay, and then I need to specify what I want to sum. So in this case, I want to go to our P&L daily table, and I want to choose the amount. Okay, so that's all I want to do for that measure here, and at the end I want to close the bracket. Okay, so that's going to create my first measure. Click box tick over here, commit, and then you see that measure appears here. So now with that, the only thing that I want to do is I want to actually take that column 1 out. So I right click and then click on delete from model. Okay, and then confirm that. So we can go to model tab, model view in here. And then you'll see that if I go to my measures table and then I click on that PL amount, so that's the measure that I've just created. Here under the display folder, if I type in actuals and click enter, you should see that, there you go. See that PL amount here now is assigned to a subfolder called actuals. So you have a measures table, then within that measures table, there's a subfolder called actuals, and then those actuals will hold all the measures related to our actuals. If we go back to our test dashboard, and I go to an insert tab, and then I select the matrix, you'll see that I'll get the empty matrix here, my visual, my first visual, and then if I add the following. So in the rows, we want to add the accounts. Okay, so what I want to do, I want to go to that dim PL account. So that's the DAX table that we created previously. Okay, so if I select that visuals, you see that that account, you see that I'm adding COGS here. So cost of goods sold, depreciation, interest, OPEX, revenue, and tax. Okay, now what I want to do for my columns, I want to go to my calendar table. So that's again another table that we've created. And here I want to add month start. Okay, so we'll get back to it in a few moments just to format it a bit. Okay, so you see that I have my matrix here with the account names in the rows, and then the month start in my columns. And now what I want to do is last, but certainly not least, I want to add our PL amount measure. Okay, so I can just type it in here in search. I can just add it like that. All right, so you see that that's our measure in here. Now there's a couple of things that we want to change. First of all, I'll change the formatting. So every time you add new measure, just make sure you format it correctly. So in our case, for example, we want to click on that measure and go to our measure tools here tab, and then just select that $sign. Okay, and this will change that to a dollar. You'll see there was a little bit of issue with decimals. So we want to make sure that we restrict it to, let's say, 0 decimals, for instance, or you can just adjust it to whatever numbers are suitable. See that the order is a little bit strange. So we want to actually sort it by accounts order. Okay, so if I go to my table view, click on the P&L account. Okay, you see this is my display order. So if I click on my account column here, and then I'm in the column tools, and then I click on sort by column, and then if I say display order, okay, right, so nothing has changed in the table itself, but if I go to my report view, you will see that my order has changed, and because we've sorted it in the other direction, if I just click again on the accounts, okay, see now the revenue, COGS, OPEX, the depreciation, tax, and interest appears. So that's actually the order that we wanted. I want to change the formatting a little bit. So for example, in this case, what I want to do, see, I'm using the month start as my column, which is fine, but I want to maybe change the formatting of how this date is displayed. So I'm going to, by selecting by still having my visual selected here, I'm going to click on format, and I'm going to go to the properties, and I'm going to click on expand that data format here and apply setting to month start. Okay, and then I want to select the format options for my month start. Okay, while I'm in the formatting, I could also go to the visual formatting here, and I could make some changes to, let's say, my column headers. Okay, that usually will differ depending on your own style or how you want it to display it. But for example, let's say I want to change the background color here, and then you see that if I scroll down a little bit in my rows, I have a subtotal label, so I can actually change that to net income. Okay, and that's going to change that that label for the total. And if I go back to my completed dashboard, that the blue is slightly lighter here, but basically you see that that follows the same logic. Again, you can change a bit of the formatting and change the fonts, but that's basically what it is. Okay, so that's what we are trying to do first. We're just trying to pull all the data as it is in the in our source tables, and then present them in a very simple profit and loss, cash flow, and balance sheet statement format. You'll see that now I'm starting to populate measures that will only extract a specific parts of the my profit and loss. So for example, in here, I have my revenue measure. So what I can do, and you can do exactly the same thing as I'm doing, I can just copy this measure, or I can type it in, and I'll go back to my practice sheet, and again, going back to my measures table, right click on the actuals, and then click on new measure, and then type in or just paste this formula here. Okay, so very quickly, what this measure does, it uses the calculate function and a filter against my PL account or deemed PL account table. Okay, and just to confirm that this measure is working correctly, if I go to an insert and if I select a cart as my next visual, and then I only insert that revenue measure from actuals, okay, you should see now that measure displaying 15.06, which matches the my total revenue from the matrix in here. And again, we could straight away go click on that revenue again and go to our formatting here in the measures tool, and then change that to a dollar sign. Okay. Now let's go back to our measures here in my tutorial, and you see that we start with revenues. We have another measure called COGS, and that is really the same measure as above, but the only difference is now we want to filter, we want to extract the PL amount, but only for account, and only applying filters to accounts using COGS as our criteria. Okay, and it's the same for OPEX and so on and so forth. And let's just skim through those measures. So you have your OPEX, you have your payroll cost, and then the next measure you see you have OPEX x payroll. So this is the OPEX excluding the payroll costs. We will want to sort of exclude them, those two, for the analysis that we'll be doing later on. D&A, depreciation, amortization, income tax expense. Again, that sort of follows the so that extracts the tax, interest. So now we've reached this section here, which is the headcount at the end of EOP, standing for the end of period. Okay, and here I'm actually going to use my payroll roster table. So basically, let's say if we're looking at March 2025. I want to count all the employees that were hired before or on March 2025, and if they were terminated, they were terminated after that March 2025, which means basically there are still employees. You see that, as I mentioned before, I will have a few more subfolders here for the future measures. But if I open the actuals, you see that that's where I've pasted all the. That's when I would paste all the actuals in. And then let's go back to my tutorial here. And then if I scroll down, you see that I have a few measures that are just still related to the profit and loss. So I would call them performance metrics. So those are standard profit and loss measures. And you see that while the measures here, we're using the source data, the measures above, those measures here are just basically combining those, the measures that we've just created. What I would now do, just scroll to that section here. So we're on the step 5B, and again, we start now with the cash flow measures. And again, they will be following a very similar approach to our PL measures, P&L measures. So starting with the CF amount, you say, okay, well, we start with the CF amount equals to sum of all the cash flows monthly amount. Okay, so again, that's taking the summing all the information, all the amounts, aggregating all the amounts from our cash flow monthly sheet. And then I want to calculate my CFO, so my cash flow from operations. In order to do this, I'm going to take my cash flow amount and I'm going to apply a filter operating to the team CF category column. Okay. Another measure, CFI. Same thing, so I want to go through my amounts, and this time my cash flow amounts, and only extract the investing, any amounts that are allocated to the investing category, CFF, cash flow from financing, again, cash flow amounts allocated to financing, and then CapEx, all the cash flow amounts, anything that's allocated to investing. And then again, if we go back to my finish dashboard, you see that I have this CF amount here measure, and then CFF, CFI, CFO. Okay, so let's go back to my web tutorial and then just scroll to that balance sheet actual measure section, and you see here again I'm using a very similar approach to create the BS amount, the approach that we use in cash flow and profit and loss. So BS amount monthly equals sum, the balance sheet monthly, and then the amount, and then you have a BS amount. And the reason for that is that balance sheet, actually what you want to do, you want to display the amount as of the end of the last period that you are showing. Now for the total assets, we can now, we're using the same similar logic to what we did before. So we're showing the BS amount from here, but now we only want to show that amount just for the assets, and we're using the that category section as our filter, and then the assets as our criteria. Okay. Total liabilities, same thing, but now we want to apply liabilities. Equity, same thing, but we want to apply equity to our section. So that nicely sort of finishes this actuals measure section, and you can see that here I can simply insert the section, insert the category from my DAX dimension BS category table. I have my month start for my columns, and then using the BS amount. So again, the amount as of the last month in a given period, I can now display the correct number. And that allows me to look at the analysis view. So that's my second page of the dashboard, where I can create now more graphical representation and graphical analysis of my data. Okay, so if you're following the web tutorial, you will see we are now entering the step 6. So here, step 6A, this is where I'm again just giving a bit of an overview of how to create those matrices that we've looked at. So the P&L, cash flow, and balance sheet statements. And now we are on our financial analysis and insight section, which really translates into creating that visual page that we're looking at in here. Okay, so let me very quickly give an overview, and I won't be recreating all the matrices and all the graphs, but it's important to make sure that we understand how they are created. And now you see that although I'm restating some of the numbers from my profit and loss statement, you see that here I'm also going to use some of those performance metrics that I've created as well. So I don't want to again display all the accounts, all the categories, and I want to be very specific of what I want to show. Okay, so this is where I'm going to start using those measures like revenues or COGS or OPEX that we've created earlier. Okay, that again are using filters that is applied to our PL amount measure. So I'm using my revenues, COGS, gross profit. Then I have my OPEX, my depreciation amortization, and that allows me to create my net income, which is my gross profit adjusted for those two measures here. In here, in my annual OPEX analysis, what I did is, if I click on this data again, you see here I've added a cluster bar chart. So all you will have to do if you want to start from scratch will be to go to an insert, and then select one of the visuals that you want to use for your presentation. So in my case, I've just used that cluster bar chart. Okay. Then the setup is slightly, the naming, the labeling is slightly different to the matrix. Okay, so on my y-axis, I'm using the subcategory from the PL subcategory table. Again, that's that DAX table that we created before. Then for the as my x-axis, so that's the okay. So the y-axis is here. That's the x-axis. So in my bars, I want to show the PL amount. Okay, so that's the PL amount is going to determine the width of my bars. But for that specific field visual, filters on this visual, I've also dragged the account and I set that filter for OPEX only. Okay, so that's the account that I only want to look at, and that's the reason why when I select the subcategories, and that sort of goes back to our model view setup where I have the accounts that sit above the subcategory. If I select here the accounts being OPEX, then this will restrict my subcategory to only to the subcategories that are that are related to OPEX. Okay, now we go to our another visual here. You see that now I'm using the stack column chart. So again, I will go to the insert, select the stack column chart from the visuals. For my x-axis, I'm using the month start from the calendar. So again, same. I keep using the month. I keep using the calendar month start. For my dates, then for my y-axis, so the axis in here, I'm going to use that measure, that headcount EOP, so end of period measure that we look at when we were creating the profit and loss actual measures. And then also for a legend, I'm going to use that department column from theme department table, which is the table, again, DAX table that we created in our first steps. And then finally, my last visuals is again a matrix. So the setup is quite similar to my first matrix here. So I'm using my month start from a calendar in my rows. And then for the values, I'm using the revenue measure, then the payroll cost. So remember that payroll cost is only taking the OPEX or the P&L amounts that are related to that subcategory for the payroll employee costs. Then I'm using my headcount measure, so that headcount end of period measure. And then if you recall, we've created two measures as my performance metrics. So one is that revenue per employee, and then the other one is a cost per employee. So now with that monthly payroll cost analysis, we've completed pretty much that the first part of the dashboard. So the analytical part where we took the where we literally showed the just the actuals in forms of the P&L, cash flow and balance sheet statements. We did a bit of an analysis using those actuals. So we created some measures that allow us to create some graphs and also tables with the data. And with that, we can move to our planning and forecasting. As always, go back to the web tutorial where you see there's a little bit more explanation on how to create those visuals. Let's talk about our first step here. So creating the parameters in Microsoft Power BI. Okay, that's going to be a quite powerful tool that we can use. What you can see here, you'll see this revenue, COGS, OPEX, salaries, and so forth year on year percentage. Okay, and all of this is really the a driver that will determine a year-on-year growth in our forecast. So, for example, if you look at the let's say yearly or annual revenues here, those are all my forecast revenues 2026 forward. Notice that when I change that parameter from let's say 12 to too much, let's say 4, you should see that after a few moments, that revenues also changes. It drops. Okay, that's the parameter that determines the year-on-year growth in my revenues. Okay, if I restore it back to 12, you should see that this revenue again. So the graph changes here, revenues changes, also the net income and so on and so forth. Okay, so the idea with this forecast is that it will create some parameters that will be part of the forecast measures that I'll be showing you later on. Okay, and in order to create a parameter like that, you need to go to a modeling tab and then click on that new parameter icon, and then select the numeric range. If I click here, you see that I have my parameter, numeric range, because that's what we selected and that's what we want to keep. We need to give it the parameter a name. So what I'm going to do, because I'm just doing presentation here, so I'm just going to call it a test. Data type, I'm going to select decimal. Okay. The reason is, let's say, the reason for that is that I want to use the percentage change. So this is why I'm going to use the decimal. And then I have here arguments for minimum. So let's say I'm going to say -1 and 1 for maximum. And what that really translates to is that I want to limit my parameter to limit the range of the parameter to go from -1, so -100%, to 1, so 100%. Okay, and then for the increment, let's say I'm going to use 0.01, which simply says that I can change my parameter by 1% in each direction. And then I can also set the default amount. So I'm going to set it at 0. Okay, so if nothing is selected, by default, this parameter is 0, which in our case would translate into a 0 year-on-year growth. Okay, so if I'm not selecting any value, I'm just simply going to assume that my revenue growth is flat. And then finally, I usually uncheck that add slicer to this page, because I know I'm going to add that slicer later on. And then if I click on create, you should see to the right in my data tab or pane, you should see that test table over here. And then you'll see that In my table, table here, my data pane here, I have tax, salary, revenue percentage, receivable percentage of revenue, payable percentage of OPEX, headcount percentage, COGS, CAPEX. Okay, so those are all parameters that are created. And the way I would create a slicer like that is very simple. Staying on my test, still on my test parameter. If I just open a new page, just to have a blank page here, I can go to my Insert tab and then select the slicer from my visual gallery in here. Okay, and then I can just add data, select the test, select that test percentage here. Okay, you see that creates a slicer. And then inside of the slicer, you see there's a slider, which you can actually format using the format pane here. So the slider is on, which is correct. You can also change the header. So at the moment it's just called test percentage. It just inherits the value, but you can change that. Change some of the properties. Let's say if I uncheck that responsive, you see that actually changes the that slider a little bit. But overall, the idea is that as I'm moving that slider, I'm also changing the value of that test parameter. So if we go back to my tutorial here, you see, okay, we're starting with the parameter, and you see here I've listed all the parameters that we want to create. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to give you an overview of the measures. I'm starting with just a few helping measures. Those are the measures that I'll be referring to as I'm creating my dashboard, and they're repetitive, so it's quite useful to actually put them as a separate measure, so you don't have to repeat the same code or block of code in your future measures. The last actual date in my data set is going to serve as a cutoff between the actual and the forecasting. Last actual year, similar to the date, it just gives you the year. Month, same thing, it will just give you the year and month of the last actual. And then you want to have that flag that we also created in our calendar is actual month. It's just going to give you true or false, true or false value, whether the given month is actual or not. And then the forecast start month, it just basically tells you that that's when the month at which the forecast starts. Okay, now here's the approach that I took to create the revenue and cost forecast measures. So I'm using the base as my starting point for my forecast. And for example, for the revenues, what this measure does is just takes the average revenue from the last 3 months of the actuals. So let's say that in our data, we have 2025, the full year. So I want to take the last 3 months, which is October, November, and December. And I want to take the average revenues from those last 3 months. Okay, so that's going to be the basis of my forecast. And that's what of my revenue forecast, and that's what this measure does here. So the logic in that revenue forecast is that we just go from the top here. So that variable G, that refers to my parameter measure. So it basically takes the value from my slicer or my slider, my revenue year-on-year or revenue percentage driver. That would be, in our case, the value in this slider here. So that revenue year on year. And remember, when we change that value, it also changed the values for that revenues. And as you can probably deduct from that is that this revenue forecast is responsible for displaying those values. Okay, so it takes that, let's say 12% or whatever the value is for that parameter. Okay, then it calculates the factor. So it basically takes the that G and then it adds to that 1 to calculate the growth factor. Then it looks at the base, my revenue base, which is that last 3 months of the last revenues. And then what that sum x does, it just basically says that, okay, for a given year or for a given calendar context, if I'm in the first year of my forecast, so if I'm in the last year plus one, so let's say 2026 is in our case, I want to take that growth assumption. So I know where I want to be with my revenues by the end of the year. So let's say I want to add 12% on top of my revenue base, but I want to get there gradually, okay? And then in the second part, it basically says that in the future years, just apply a year-on-year growth, okay? So let's say if my revenues in January 2026 was, let's say, 100, just take this 100 and then add 10% on top of that. So in January 2027, it's going to be 110. Now moving on to the next measure. Now we have our COGS, so our cost of goods sold forecast measure. So again, I'm going to take the my base, which similar to revenues is going to be based on the three last actual months. So my COGS from December to October 2025. I'll divide by 3 to get my average. And then for the forecast, I'm going to, for my growth factor, I'm going to link it to a COGS percentage measure, which is linked to that parameter, that COGS year-on-year percentage parameter slicer that I have in my dashboard. I'm going to apply the same formula that the same logic in the formula that I applied to my revenues. So in the first year, I'm going to bring that COGS gradually, and then later on, I'm going to apply a year-on-year percentage increase. Now, for my headcount forecasting, slightly different base calculation. So for the headcount base, I'm going to assume just take the last month actuals. So in our case, this is a December 2025. So let's say if I have 100 employees, that's going to be my starting point. And then for the headcount forecast, I'm going to apply my headcount increase percentage. And then I'm going to apply that growth gradually. So for example, if I have 100 employees and I have a 10% growth assumption, I want to get to 110 employees, so 10 more, 10% of 100 until the end of December 2026, so the first year of forecast. And here we can see that I've already slipped in a measure that I'll cover I'll talk about a bit more later on. But I have this measure here, headcount actual plus forecast. So that's simply this measure allows me to combine my actuals and my forecast measures in one, just in case if I want to, for example, visualize them in one place. Now, with the headcount forecast, I can now combine this headcount forecast with my average salary per employee assumption to calculate the total payroll cost. So in here, first of all, I'm calculating my base for my salary cost forecast. So I'm taking the last 3 months of the salaries to calculate my average per head. So now in order for me to calculate, apply the forecast, again, I'm going to use the same logic as we did with our revenues or COGS. So I'm going to apply that salary increase. And then finally, in order for me to calculate the payroll cost forecast, I simply have to take the headcount forecast and then multiply by that average salary per head. Also going to look at the OPEX. Now, because payroll is calculated separately, we just done it. Now I have a part when I have a measures when I calculate the OPEX excluding that payroll. So I'm separating them. So first of all, I need to calculate the average OPEX excluding payroll in my last 3 months of actuals. And then in order to calculate the forecast, again, as my growth factor, I'm applying here my OPEX percentage, and that's and I'm going to apply that to that base. Okay, so it follows the same Same logic, gradual increase in the first year, just the same way as we did it with revenues or with our COGS, and then a year-on-year growth in the future forecast years. Okay, so it's all compounding over time. And there are also some other measures related to our forecast. So we want to also be able to forecast CapEx. Okay, so any capital expenditures. Now, logic is very similar. The way the base is calculated can be a bit different. So for example, in here, my base is actually going to be the average of the entire year. Okay. Then I'm applying the CapEx forecast. So I'm simply taking again, the growth for the CapEx and apply that to my base. Connected to those are some depreciation measures. This is a little bit more complex topic, but basically what I wanted to make sure is that the depreciation for the existing assets, so any assets that are being carried from the actual months, are separated to the any depreciation from forecast CapEx. So you can see that here when you have that DNA, so depreciation amortization, that's actually what's driving this measure. Those two measures actually are driving this value here. Finally, my model also deals with the debt forecasting. Okay, so if we go to our cash flow and debt page or debt dashboard, you'll see that you have some additional parameters here, like a new debt interest, debt period. CapEx is actually that parameter that's related to CapEx calculation that we did before. And then there was some AR and AP, so accounts receivable and accounts payable that we haven't attached yet. You also will see that in my subfolders here, I have forecast debt and then forecast cash subfolder. Okay, just to organize my measures a little bit. So with the debt, what I wanted to do, I wanted to just show how you could possibly add some new financing into our cash flow forecast. Okay, so I'm starting with some debt helper measures, and that allows us to go into our calculations. So in here, there's a few measures that we need to correctly calculate the debt amortization. So first of all is the debt payment measure. That's the measure that's similar to the Excel PMT function. So based on our debt amortization schedule, debt amount, and the debt interest, we can calculate the monthly overall payment. Okay, so we're assuming here that we're paying the same amount to a bank on a monthly basis. And then this debt payment will later on will split that between interest and the principal part. But basically we're saying, okay, well, how much money do I need to deduct from my cash to service my debt? Then we have a debt balance at period. So that's going to calculate using our index here, and again our debt term, debt amount, and then debt payment measures. That's going to calculate the debt balance in a given period. So for example, let's say we're in the year 2 or year 3 of the forecast, and we want to see, okay, well, how much debt we still own after those years. That's obviously depending on the speed in which we were paying that the debt. And then we have measures like debt opening balance that uses that balance at period measure in here. The debt draw amount, that's simply driven by that debt amount parameter. Debt payment on a monthly basis, again, that uses this debt PMT measure. Debt interest, that simply takes that monthly interest that we calculated before, so taking that annual interest divided by 12 at times the debt opening balance. Then debt principal repayment, which is a subtraction of that interest amount from that debt payment, that monthly payment. Debt closing balance at the end, which is simply which simply takes the debt opening balance and then adds or deducts the principal repayment. The principal repayment is a negative number, that's why you have a plus here. And then debt balance, actual and forecast. So that shows the amount of the debt balance. If we're in the actual period, it will simply show whatever balance sheet shows from our balance sheet source data. And if we're in the forecast period, it uses the that forecast closing balance measure. And then I have an interest expense forecast only measure. So that's something I'm going to use for my P&L forecast because we have to show the interest expense as a part of our P&L statement. But just to show you how that modeling works in practice. So we will get to the other measures here like a cash flow and balance sheet. But if you look at that table over here, I have a debt schedule matrix with my opening balance, the debt drawn amount. Again, I right click on the field name just to change it a little bit for the visual. Then the principal repayment, closing balance, and interest expense. Those are all the measures. You can see them here in the full name. Those are all the measures that we've just introduced. And then see what happens to my debt schedule here. So to my, let's say, opening balance and the interest expense as I'm changing the that new debt parameter here. Okay, so the new debt basically means the level of debt, the amount of debt that I want to in the first month of my forecast. So if I change that to, let's say 1.5, that's the increment I set for my parameter. You see, okay, those values here changed, but I noticed that also on this graph, which shows the cash flows to which we will get in a few moments, cash flow forecast, you see that that line here, which represents the cash balance, also decreased. Okay, so if I lower that to, let's say, 500,000 of a new debt, you see those interest expenses have changed because we have a lower debt, also the principal repayment, but see now the line goes below zero. So actually it suggests that we'll have a negative cash flow. Okay, let's go back to my web tutorial. And again, you can find the link to this tutorial in the description of the video, also with the timestamps for the different sections of this video tutorial. So you can sort of skip the section or move back and forth. So here I have my DAX earning measures, and simply what I'm trying to do here, I'm now trying to combine my actuals with forecasts. I did mention that before when we're covering some of the measures before, like headcount, for instance, that I want to have an ability to show the actuals and forecasts, let's say, on one matrix. You see that all I do in here is, for example, for my revenue measures, I'm creating a new measure called revenue actual plus forecast in the brackets, and all it does is just basically equals to revenue plus revenue forecast only. And the reason it does that is because the revenue measure only refers to the actual numbers. So if let's say the year is 2026, so it's a forecast year, this revenue measure here actually will return null, it will return zero, so it won't return any value. Okay, and then also by the, sort of the same logic, that revenue forecast only returns the values for the years or for the periods from my forecast. So starting with revenues, then I go to a COGS, same logic. So I'm taking the COGS actuals and then the forecast. Then I have my payroll measures that we've covered. So all those measures we've covered above in this tutorial here or earlier in this video. OPEX excluding payroll. So again, we wanted to separate the OPEX from payroll, or separate payroll from the rest of the OPEX. Then I have my EBITDA here. So combination of the of revenue, COGS, OPEX excluding payroll, and payroll. Then my gross profit, which just takes the revenue and then adds COGS. Again, I'm adding the measure, not subtracting it, because the all the COGS here, all the measures for cost return negative number. So I'm adding the negative, resulting in negative. Then CapEx, similar story. So my CapEx actual plus CapEx forecast only. Depreciation and amortization. Here we see that D&A, that's the actual, and then for the depreciation amortization, as I mentioned that earlier when we were talking about those measures, the forecast of depreciation consists of two parts. So one is the depreciation from the existing assets, so from the assets that we added during the actual period, and then I have these new assets or capex being added in the forecast. EBIT, so it's earnings before interest and tax. It's basically my earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization, adjusted for depreciation and amortization. Then income tax expense, and apply a tax rate, and tax is driven by it's one of the parameter measures, and otherwise just return a 0. And then for the income tax expense, I'm taking the income tax from the actuals, income tax expense plus that income tax expense that I've just forecast that I just added. Then I have my interest expense. So again, actuals plus the interest expense forecast. So that's actually the measure coming from my debt forecasting that we just covered. And then the net income, which is my EBIT. So again, earnings before interest and tax, adjusted for my tax expense, and adjusted for my interest expense. Okay, so that basically gives me those earnings measures, which I can start using in my dashboard already here. So my forecast P&L. Let's just very quickly click on that matrix here again, and I just show the fields. You see that again, I've right-click on the field name to rename this field for the visual. But if I hover over the measure, you see, for example, let's just go for the revenues. You see here, it shows me the name is the revenue actual plus forecast. Okay. And then while we're actually on this this dashboard, I can also show you that annual breakdown here. So again, if I go to my values, you see the revenue. I'm also using the revenue actual plus forecast measure, but because the context here is on the yearly basis, so it's in the rows I have years. That's why it will aggregate it, it will sum it up on the annual basis, all those measures. Okay, so that actually nicely leads us back to our cash flow dashboard. And let's go back to our measures here. Okay, so we finish on the our net income. Because we're on the earnings, still on the earnings, I've also created here retain earnings measure. So this measure will be helpful for when we are creating our balance sheet. Okay, so all it does is just tracks the it displays the end of the period. So again, going back to our calendar context, let's say we're in the quarter one or in the year 2026. We want to show for a balance sheet, we want to show the balance as of the end of the period. So in other words, if I'm, let's say, again, let's say we're in the 2026, so that's the first forecast year, and I'm at the end, so I'm at December, I want to sum what this formula here will do. It will sum all the net income from the first forecast month, so from January to December 2026, so until the end of the first year forecast. That's that net income here, and you will be able to see it here on the balance sheet. So that's that retained earning. Now, looking at going back to our web tutorial and looking at the first matrix in our cash flow dashboard, we see that we need to create some cash flow forecast measures. What the accounts payable forecast measure does, it's just taking a percentage of OPEX and allocates that to account payable balance. Okay, so you see that here I have a reference to my, I have a parameter called a payable percentage of OPEX. That's the reference that I'm making here in the variable. And the way I'm calculating my accounts payable is simply by taking my OPEX value, which is here, and then also my COGS value. So I'm adding those two together. and I'm allocating a percentage of that value to my accounts payable. And now I have to also, because it's going to be in a balance sheet item, I have to here I have the measure that shows the accounts payable balance at the end of a period. And then finally, to calculate for our cash flow forecasting, not we also have to understand that what's the movement between today's accounts payable or this month's accounts payable, if you look at the monthly breakdown, and the previous month's payable. Okay, so we just have to see, look at the differences between the two, and that's going to, for example, if we increase our balance from one month to another, so from the current month to the previous month, that's going to have a positive impact on our cash flow. And then if we decrease that, it's going to be have a negative. Okay, and then we have the same logic for accounts receivable. The only difference is that now we're looking into the receivable percentage of revenue parameter as our driver. And the base of our calculation would be revenues, not the cost. So previously we look at the cost. Now it's the revenue. So what the accounts receivables would actually be our asset. So the way I calculate the cash flow here is simply by saying, okay, let's look at the net income as my starting point. Then I want to adjust that to that net income to my depreciation and amortization. Accounts receivable has a negative, or a movement in accounts receivable has a negative impact on the cash, so that's a negative here. But increase in or a change in accounts payable has a positive impact. So that's why it's important to make sure that those signs are correct. For my CFI, so this is cash flow from investment. I'm assuming here that the only investment I'll have is in the form of CapEx. So this is quite simple here. So I'm basically saying that whatever my CapEx is, my forecast CapEx, that's my cash flow from investment. Okay, and then if you recall our debt measures or debt model, I have my cash flow from financing here, again, forecast. For the non-actual months or periods, I want to take my amount of the debt that I've drew. So let's say will be that 2 million plus all the debt principal repayments. Okay, so the debt drawn amount is positive number. The principal repayment is a negative number, so we're adding the negative to make it negative. So I'm simply saying that, okay, in a given period, in the context of a matrix or a graph, sum together all the debt that has been drawn and then adjusted that amount by principal repayment. So subtract all the principal repayment from that amount. Same thing as we did before. Now I have the measures for cash flow for operations, cash flow from investment, cash flow from financing. I'm adding the actuals and the forecast together. Then that allows me to calculate the cash movement. So that's that delta in cash. So those are all the cash flows added together. So if I take the operating cash flow, investment, and financing cash flow, that gives me my total cash flow movement. That allows me then to create that CF amount measure, which allows us just to drop it in the matrix and then display automatically the right amount. Now, in order for the matrix to work properly, I had to add that switch statement here, or that if switch statement. So it basically says that if the category, let's say in my rows, is operating, then I have to select the CFO, so cash flow for operations. If it's investing, then use the CFI measure. And then if it's a financing, then CFF. And then if it's a net, then combine those three measures together. Now, as you can see, we are moving towards the balance sheet. So the balance sheet is we've already built quite a few measures for the balance sheet, and we have basically everything in place to complete it. We have all the sort of ingredients. So we have the cash movements, which can calculate the cash. We have accounts receivables, the net PPP, that's the capex adjusted for the depreciation. The equity paid in capital, that's we can get it from the actuals. Retained earnings, we've covered that a few moments before. We were talking about the earnings. and the liabilities accounts payable. Again, that's that big, the long measure that I cover, and then the debt. We've also that's the debt balance effectively that also cover our debt section. But in order to create this table, again, we have to create a set of measures that will allow us to aggregate those numbers together. To do that, I'm going to go back to my balance sheet measure, and let's just dive into those measures straight away. So you see I have my cash flow, actual forecast. So what we want to do, we want to take the cumulative, we want to sum up all the cash movements from the very first month. And then you see here that we basically defining the first month as the first month of our actuals. So that's our starting point. And then we want to add those, which is that sum x formula does. We want to add all the cash movements, which is the measure here, from that first month until the current month that we're looking at. For the net PPE, what this measure does, it takes the base, so takes our actuals as the starting point for the calculation, and then for the forecast, aggregates all the capex spend, so our capex and capex forecast spend. It uses a negative number here because the capex is a negative, so the measure returns a negative number. So we actually want that to be a positive now, hence the negative number. And then it's adding to that, so with plus, so it's adding the negative number, which is the depreciation, and for the existing assets, and then for the new capex. So now, with all those ingredients for the balance sheet calculations, we can actually now start creating balance sheet measures or forecast measures that will allow us to build the matrix in here. Balance sheet measures, we start with the balance BS amount that displays the last actual end of period balance. For the balance sheet amount measure, so I ended up again creating that switch statement. Okay, so all those measures here are those balance sheet measures that we created above or earlier in this tutorial. Okay, so now we're really on the step 8, which a lot of that we've already covered. Now, one important thing is to remember to also sync your parameters, especially in a dashboard like this one. When we're using, for the forecasting here, we're using actually 2 separate pages because Microsoft Power BI does not sync those parameters automatically. So what may happen is, for example, if you, let's say that I want to change that interest rate to 12%. Yeah, change that to 12%. So you see that interest expense is going up, and then vice versa. So let's say that I want to change that revenue to growth to 14%. So the revenues here changed, but I also have to make sure that that change is also reflected in my cash flows because that the revenue assumptions are part of my cash flow from operations, then my balance sheet here, my return earnings, and then eventually the cash balance, which you can actually see how suddenly it took off. And to do that in a Power BI dashboard, you have to make sure that you sync slicers, okay? So go to each of the slicers separately here. Just have to make sure that the slicers are synced with P&L forecast and then also with the cash flow and debt forecast, okay? So going back to my web tutorial, you'll see there's a whole section here on how to build those visuals. And then after the recap, you see that I have a preview here, which basically just shows the dashboard, this Power BI dashboard, FP&A dashboard that we talk about. And you can use that preview to play with the parameters and then test it for yourself. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach me through my website, www.challengejp.com, or just leave a comment in the video itself, which probably is the best way. That way, others can also benefit from your questions and hopefully from my answers.
I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you'd like to learn more about data analytics or download the Power BI dashboard file, follow the links in the description of this video or go to www.challengejp.com. Thank you very much.